Hi, I'm Bryce Brown, founder and curator of Milton Art Bank. Welcome to another edition of Virtual Art Talks. I'm very pleased today to introduce artist and educator Mark Mahosky. Mark teaches at Kutztown University. I've invited him here today to discuss the works in the exhibition Neil Anderson, Traveling the Plane, currently on view at the Art Bank. For more information on this and other exhibitions, please visit www.miltonartbank.com. Please enjoy.
It's really great to be here today, especially in these times where it's very difficult to see art and sort of have this, time to have some thoughts about art, considering the things that are going on all around us. So I really want to thank Bryce a lot for creating this oasis out here in the middle of central Pennsylvania. It's very important. And I know it means a lot to a lot of people, so I just want to start there. We're here today to talk about Neil Anderson's work. Neil has been in the Lewisburg area for quite a while, I think since maybe the late 50s, taught at Bucknell University, as you all know. And I moved to this area about 26 years ago, and not long after that I met Neil, and we've been friends for quite a while. And so, I mean, I may have a very different viewpoint than somebody who's coming into this without knowing the man and just seeing the paintings, but I do think that's all very important. One of the things I want to say is in this time of COVID, we're painters and we're staying at home and we're painting. And I have this friend by proxy, a guy named Vladimir Unicek, I think is his name, or Unicek. He has these videos on YouTube from the BBC. And he's not particularly, great or anything, but he's kind of interesting. You listen to him. But the thing that he does is that he goes to where these artists were born, the streets that they walked around, and I find that kind of fascinating. And so he does something like that that nobody else really does in depth. And so you start to put some things together with the artists that he talks about in relationship to their surroundings. And this is where I'm going to segue into Neil, of course. Neil has surrounded himself with not only an intellectual life, but he's also deeply invested in nature. His house is built around nature, and he's fostered these ideas. There's a tree near his studio that I'm always terrified, if it were near my house, that it would like fall over and crush it. But basically, that tree is so important. You see this right outside of his studio window. And walking around, looking at the layers of leaves and decay on the ground has been a big and integral part of the things that he's thinking of. And I think all artists have some type of relationship to, obviously, the world around them, and then this kind of intellectual world of painting and thought. And how these two blend together and creep together is very obviously shown in Neil's work. Neil grew up in the Midwest, and I know from conversations that I've had with him that not only does he have this love of nature, but he also has, of course, a love of painting. And some of the most influential paintings that he talks about, I think, are like from any artist of that generation that was being trained post-World War II. People like de Kooning and Pollock, the abstract expressionists were very, very important. And he often speaks about de Kooning's excavation at the Chicago Art Institute. And I can still see a feel for that in a lot of the paintings in this room. But there's something that has gone beyond that. When I think about his relationship to painting, in the abstract expressionists, there was this machismo and this this kind of vitalness. And I think Neil's paintings have taken that and sort of distilled it down into something a little bit more reasoned and something a little bit more tempered. The energy is still there of the abstract expressionist, but it has been sort of visited and revisited in I want to say like sessions of painting. Being in the studio and contemplating and working and reworking these things is basically what I think these paintings are kind of about. That sounds pretty mundane to most people. If you're a painter, it is an exciting thing. It's what you do. To most people who view paintings, I would imagine, who are not painters, they just see the surface of things. And lately in Neil's paintings, he's revealing these layers more and more. And I think these paintings are becoming more intricate and more exciting because of this revelation. And I want to say something about this revelation of layers. Maybe it does refer to the nature, you know, the things that he sees in nature. You know, a group of leaves lays on the ground all winter, gets covered by snow, reveal themselves in the spring only to be covered by, you know, another set of flowers that are falling off of trees, and then another group of leaves, and so on and so forth. There's that sort of cycle of nature that I know that he, you know, contemplates and thinks about. But in painting, and he may be making reference to that thing, in painting, this is the gist of it. You are dedicating your time, you're dedicating your thoughts to this process. And this process reveals time. If you're a painter, you know that red takes a long time to dry. And if I'm looking at Neil's paintings and I see red, I know that he might have had to wait for that to dry to work on it a week later in that one area. And I think the paintings that I enjoy looking at, and this includes Neil's work, that revelation of time is one of the most important things. I kind of consider it spiritual in a way, and I think Neil probably does too. It's this idea of contemplation, patience. These things are kind of, they're very serious in Neil's work, and it's something that our culture is not really that interested in these days, unfortunately. So it's even more paramount that these works exist, because there's such a transitory idea, kind of fashion in art and a hype that these works avoid. They're not about that at all. They're paintings of someone who is comfortable about who they are and what they do, and they're not looking for a type of adulation or a splash on a blog or something like that. They are about painting and about, you know, a serious thinking and looking. So the other thing that I'd like to say about references to paintings, and maybe not specific paintings, but the attitude towards painting. If we think about, you know, Picasso and Matisse, for instance, Picasso was a guy who was going to really engage the world with things like Guernica, where Matisse, and you can maybe fault him for this, you know, he decided to go to the south of France and paint about, you know, joy and pleasure and this sort of beauty towards the sensual. And I do think abstract painting has been faulted for being beautiful and not taking on the ideas of the world. Just as a side, I mean, I can tell you from the conversations I've had that Neil is very concerned about, you know, things such as social justice and so on. And in a way, these paintings are maybe an asylum from having to deal with and think about some of those things. But that doesn't mean the man isn't engaged in these ideas. Especially in these times that we're dealing with recently, art can be a sort of refuge and an asylum and a way to, and I hate to think about this, but it can be therapeutic in some way. And I'm not saying that Neil's doing that in particular, but I think we can read these things as being about joy. And someone has to paint about this. We can't all make paintings about you know, social justice and how to rid the world of evil. We also have to demonstrate what is beautiful so that we know what's beautiful. And I think that that is one of the agendas of these paintings. It's trying to reveal the beautiful tensions of nature, the cycles of decay and rebirth. So, you know, I could almost read this in a certain way as not like, you know, the forces of evil against good, but just the idea that like things have to go away so new things can come along. And that's one way I kind of look at these. But I don't want to read anything that literally. What I enjoy and what has come up in Neil's paintings, I would say in the last 6 or 8 years, is this new device that he's been using a lot, where there is this kind of mark making that is either made by like some kind of fabric or something that he presses into the canvas, and then this constant editing of that. And I really love that these negative shapes are not just sort of like a product or a byproduct of editing, but these negative shapes become very much a force of their own. It's almost trying to say that I too was once as relevant as this color that was on top, and I still retain this kind of intensity. It's just that I look a little bit different than that. I'm not as showy. And I love that he is getting these areas to really sort of sing. Not everything in a painting can be the main actor. I mean, there's this thing in the Oscars called the Best Supporting Actor. And the Best Supporting Actors are very important to make some of the things that are, you know, the most eye-catching become eye-catching. So it's about these kinds of contrasts. This painting in particular might be the most dynamic in terms of that contrast in the entire show, where there's, you know, a lot more tone variation and a lot more variation in hue as well. This painting, this is, I believe, titled Earth Song number 56, Earth Song 56. Is probably my favorite one in the show because it shows the totality of Neil's vocabulary. And artists or painters in particular, you know, one of the things is developing this vocabulary from looking at other paintings and looking at the things that surround you and drawing, having conversations and so on and so forth. But the vocabulary is developed in the studio. And this particular painting shows like a full flowering, in my estimation, of all the fireworks and all the vocabulary that Neil possesses. There are some new things happening in here that I haven't seen, you know, from looking at Neil's paintings in the last 20 years. There's some new things happening where the edges, and I was talking to Bryce a little bit before the show, about how these two edges correspond. We're not quite sure what's on top and what's been painted over, what's been edited out. It seems open. But then, you know, right next to it, there's this very, very sharp edge and very, very sharp line. And when those two things can exist in the same painting, you know, it widens the threshold a lot. And I think this painting does widen the threshold in many ways. This particular area right here that is layers and layers of very transparent and you know, it's not, there's just a few areas that are opaque, is very compelling to me, especially when it is in relationship to something like this. So I mean, these are the things I think painters look at. Maybe at least the painters that I know, maybe, yeah, we look at the whole thing, but we really love to get up close, and we really love to see the hand, and we really love to see the touch of the artist. I mean, for me, that is where like sort of a kind of integrity lies. When a writer constructs a sentence, it's just a little part of the whole novel, maybe, but these little sentences are very, very important in the structure that they create and the tensions that they create. So, you know, what is the impact on the viewer? I do think Neil is trying to create a kind of structure and not chaos. And I do think a lot of the abstract expressionists were leaving things sort of open for interpretation. And this kind of goes back to Cubism in a way. But I think with Neil's paintings, he is trying to find reason. He is trying to find order. And he is trying to relay that to the viewer and say, sort of saying like, have faith. Have faith in, you know, beauty. Have faith in this pursuit of a kind of intellectual dialogue. It's not really a dialogue that is verbal, but it is definitely visual. And believe. I don't think he's trying to tear anything down. He's trying to expose to us the kind of great joy that he experiences in looking at the world and looking at other art. And he has dedicated his entire life to this. And that is a feat in itself. There are many, many artists whose work I really do not like. But if they dedicate their entire life to it, I have to, without a doubt, admire them. In this case, I like the art and I like the artist as well. So that is a really great thing. However, that dedication, without you know, the huge accolades that you might see in the auction houses and on the cover of art magazines, to me, that's a really beautiful thing. That someone, you know, gets up in the morning and and we're lucky we can do this. We can go into our studios, and let's hope we can keep doing this. We can go into our studios and work and think and try to reveal what we know and what we love about the world to people that might not even be born. That is the other really great thing about painting. You can stand in front of a painting that was made in a tomb in Rome 2,000 years ago, and you can stand in basically the same physical space that that painter stood in, you know, the same distance from it. And that's what I love about, you know, great painting. You can stand here and see the decisions that are made. You can stand here and see what was edited out, what was added. And in these later paintings, you can see a lot of the touch, a lot of the brushstroke. Another thing about painting that I think is a really beautiful thing, and I think it's in the process, but it's not necessarily what is trying to be communicated, is the idea of doubt. When we're so sure about something, it kind of gets boring. But painting is one of the great mediums, maybe the only medium, where you can really manifest the idea of doubt. When we look at a film, it's all put together. Hopefully that's going to happen with me today. It's going to look really good. And you're not going to see behind the scenes where I'm sweating, right? But with a painting and with a drawing, and this isn't even true of printmaking because you just have the print. You don't know what went on to get there. But with a painting, you can see how it got there. It's revealed. Maybe not in David, but definitely in the 20th century, we see, and into the 21st century, we can see how things are revealed. And there is a beauty in doubt. It's not so sure all the time because we are creatures of doubt. We think about things all the time and contemplate them. And so, you know, this could be a visual manifestation of that as well. I don't think the outcome is doubtful in Neil's mind. I think he's pretty confident that this is the way it should be finished. But you can still see the changes and the revelation of that. And to me, that is what painting is about, and I think these paintings embody that very well. So it's been a pleasure to talk to you all today. I hope you will come down to the Milton Art Bank and see the work of Neil Anderson, the Earth Song paintings. And I'd like to thank Bryce as well. Thank you.